Cue the confetti. It's episode 50 of the D6 podcast.
Here's the encouragement I give you. The shortest distance between your child's heart, your grown child's heart, and Christ is you.
Parents need to own that they are the primary disciplers of their child.
Our goal in parenting is not for our kids ultimately to get a great education, as good as that is. Our goal is not for them to be great athletes. Our goal is not for them to go on great dates and find a great husband or a great wife. Our goal is not for them to have a great career with a great job, making great money. Our goal is for them to love a great God.
You're listening to the D6 podcast. Here's your hosts, Ron Hunter and Jeremy Lee.
This is the 50th episode of the podcast that helps you build an excellent family ministry in your church. Let's party.
That's right, 50. We've made it.
Just before this episode, we said, we need to have a lot of energy for this.
That's
We're doing
right.
good so far.
That's right.
I'm so happy about this.
I can't wait.
This is exciting.
We've got Lisa Harper and a special surprise.
A huge surprise.
A big one.
Along with an even other surprise.
Ooh.
Multiple surprises.
They are winners if they are listeners today.
I believe so. Here's the deal. Let's go ahead and unleash the first surprise. Do you want to do it, or you go ahead? You should do this.
Oh, which surprise?
The big one, the what we're giving, because I want them to start. I'll start winning now.
Okay. Here,
Hold on, before you do this, get your email browser up.
That's right. I was going to say, before you can even understand the prize, you need to remember this email address, because your timeliness of getting this email in does matter.
Open up your Gmail. Open up your Outlook.
Here's the email you're going to want to enter. Episode 50, 50, not spelled out, episode 50 at d6family.com. There's nothing you have to buy. There's nothing you have to do. All you have to do is email us. You don't even have to share your name with us. We don't care. We can't just enter you automatically into some massive email list without your opting in. That's not what this is about.
No. This
is a way for us to say thank you for listening. And we are giving away, drum roll, Jeremy. Okay. 50, this is episode 50, and the email address is episode 50, the number. We're giving away 50 tickets to the D6 conference.
That's right. Just like the preacher says when he preaches on tithing, we don't want something from you. We want something for you.
Wow.
So
well, we can
so send in. We're trying to give you something here.
That's right. And we can do that this year because we're moving to a bigger room.
Yeah, this isn't.
And so this isn't, hey, we have unsold tickets.
Yeah.
I mean,
our sales are great.
Our sales are great. But this is a one way we can give back. We're going back to a bigger room. We're back in Dallas this year. It's going to be an awesome lineup. You can go to the d6conference.com, see all the speakers that are out there.
I know there's a ton, but I'm looking forward to Gary Chapman. He's kind of a new one.
That's right. I have a feeling our emails are already filling up right now, aren't they?
Look, hit send. This is a free thing. And we did 50 on purpose because we wanted it to be big.
That's right. And so when we multiply that out, that's $15,000 we just gave away.
Because it's $200. If you buy a ticket at the conference, it's $299, and we are giving it away. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there. You didn't even give permission for this, but there's a code that you can use for your senior pastor.
That's right.
If you put in Boss Man, they get a free ticket. So
Once
right
they
now,
purchase one. Once they purchase one with Boss Man, yes.
Never mind.
But that is a giveaway.
I'm messing things up now.
That's okay. So the point of this is all you got to do is shoot us an email. We will respond in the next 24 hours with a code and instructions for how you can sign up and use that no strings attached.
I'm so excited. This is so amazing.
I am
50,
too.
The first 50, so you have to get it in. That's why we said email now. I bet it's already gone.
I bet it is too, but if I were sitting out there, I'd make sure, because I'm counting on some people driving and listening. And if you're not driving, I would go ahead and shoot it in because you got an advantage.
If you need to know the dates.
And if you're driving, don't email us.
It's September 20th through 22nd, 2017.
Dallas, Texas.
Put on your cowboy hats, cowboy boots. We're going to Dallas, and it's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
And
Incredible.
like Ron said, I want to make sure everybody understands, because sometimes I hear that, and the cynical side of me says, "Oh, they must have." Look, we're gonna have a ton. We're gonna have our normal huge crowd there.
We are.
We just have a bigger room this year, so we have something that we can give, and we wanted to make it a big deal because it's the 50th episode.
Yeah. You know, we tend to have people who give and donate in a way that we scholarship some tickets anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We may have fewer scholarships for having done this, but that's okay. We don't want ever there to be a financial need standing in the way of ministry.
So hey,
So this is just a bonus, right? on top.
listening has its benefits.
That's right.
So glad that you're here. That's enough of that, though. That was huge. That was
That's right.
I mean, epic way to open the show, just like I was hoping for.
But bigger than that is our first guest.
Lisa Harper. All right, now, if you don't know Lisa Harper, you can, after you email episode 50 at d6family.com, then you can open up Google and Google her, because she's all over the place. The
That's
lady has written some amazing books.
The only person that needs an introduction to this is any guy listening, and most of them should know who they are. Every woman out there is already cheering out loud.
As she was making her way to the interview table for this interview, women were just hugging her. I mean,
And
she
following.
was like,
I know.
It's just
this
like,
procession of fans.
And let me tell you, I, being a dude, knew nothing about Lisa Harper when we started the interview. At the end, she almost had me in tears.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I really did some diving into her story. I'd done some research, and she was very comfortable talking about pain. So, and this is one of those episodes, or one of those interviews that's just, yes, it's about you as a minister. It's more so, though, about you as a human and you as a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
And this is going to be, that's why we saved it for this show, because I think anyone that listens to this is going to, it was one of my favorite interviews. And so I made the request, and we got this in, and episode 50.
It needed Lisa Harper, and if you've not heard of her, her fan base is about to grow because you're going to become a fan.
That's right. So while you're emailing us at episode 50 at d6family.com to get your ticket, go ahead and get ready for this interview. After the break, in this 50th episode, we'll be listening to Lisa Harper.
What's it like to be a member of the D6 Leader Network? Well, what if I told you that you could hire an intern for your ministry that would plan your sermon series each month and create amazing graphics to help promote it? What if that same intern helped you train your volunteers by writing an online teacher training every month that includes a fully produced video without you even having to touch it? What if that same intern created a fully designed parent resource that they can actually use to help them spiritually lead their family? What if that same intern was able to get you access to every main stage talk, breakout, or interview D6 has ever done at their D6 conference for your own training and development? That would be the best intern in the history of the world, right? Well, becoming a member of the brand new D6 Leader Network is like hiring an intern to do all of that and more for around $1 a day. We make your life easy. We make awesome easy. If you are a minister, you can go to d6leadernetwork.com to learn more.
So I'm preparing to laugh, I think, because our next guest is going to be fun. I can tell already. Her name is Lisa Harper. She's a gifted communicator. Are you? I mean, that says it in your bio.
I was just going to say that's just so hanging me out to dry. Because what if I'm really boring?
Well, who?
That's like some yahoo. I don't know who wrote that.
I'm hoping it wasn't
They
you.
just
That would
made it
be-
up. Just
okay.
made it up. Yeah.
You were the director of Focus on the Family's National Women's Ministry for 6 years. You've been a speaker on the Women of Faith tour. You've written 10 books. This is what I love.
Most of which are in my mother's basement, by the way. Packed away. Didn't sell.
This is what you say. I'm definitely grateful for the opportunities God's given me, but don't forget, He often uses donkeys and rocks.
He
Come
does.
on.
He does.
Come on.
He does. Paul says he uses the weak and foolish things of this world to shame the wise. So I'm always like, don't read your own press release, baby. We're all in trouble if you believe that mess.
Amen.
So yeah, he does. I am grateful for the gifts he's given me, mostly the gift of being a windbag. But I just think anytime you start thinking he needs me to accomplish his purposes, we are all in trouble.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I want to start with this because as I kind of researched you, I'm going to go ahead and confess I had no idea about anything. because I don't really go to the Women of Faith tour very
That's
much.
right.
So
You're a
this
little
was,
too masculine.
So I Googled like crazy to learn more about you, and I saw a video where you talked about beating the snot out of your daughter's stuffed moose.
Yes.
So
yes,
I thought it'd be a fun place to
That's
start.
a great
lot of people
place.
that are listening may
Just
not
go
know
ahead
about
and
your
air
daughter.
my anger management
Yeah.
issues with the whole world.
Tell them
Jeremy.
the story about your daughter and how that
I
happened.
brought my little girl's name is Missy, Melissa Price Harper, and I brought her home from Haiti. I adopted her 2.5 years ago, almost 2.5 years. Next month is our 2.5 anniversary. But she didn't speak any English when I brought her home, had been raised in kind of a voodoo culture. And maybe I'd had her home for about a month. And every night I would put her to sleep. You know, that first year I brought her home, and I'd go through this routine of telling her how much I loved her, how much God loved her, going over some real basic English phrases. Well, maybe a month into this, her little face, I just saw her little eyes kind of widen, and she looked fearful. And she went, Jabla, Mama Jabla. And it was the weirdest thing, Jeremy. It's like just kind of the hair stood up on the back of my neck. And I was like, baby, what does Jabla mean? And I was trying to ask her what it meant, but she didn't have enough English to tell me what she was talking about. But I could tell she was scared. And so I went, hang on just a second, baby. I ran downstairs, got my Creole dictionary, looked up the word that I just mispronounced, but the word she had said in Creole. And it's the feminine derivative of Satan. It's a female demon. And I thought, oh no. Not in my house. Not in my house. So I took off, ran to the kitchen. The fastest oil I had access to was olive oil. Went flying back up the steps. And on the way up the steps, I thought, I've got to do something tangible, like something visible, because I don't have the language to explain to her. And so I grabbed her least favorite stuffed animal. All these people had given us stuffed animals, and I brought her home from Haiti. And somebody had given us a moose, and she just hated that moose. So I grabbed the moose, and I said, baby, this is Jabla. And then I took my fist, and I said, and this is Jesus. And I went on to just beat the snot out of that stuffed moose. And I told her, Jabla has no place in our home. The enemy will never have access to you because you are a child of the Most High King. And basically, we had church in her little bedroom that night. And then I put olive oil, it still smells like an Italian restaurant, in her bedroom because I was just like, nope, not in our house. So that's the story of the moose who is no more.
Yeah. And speaking of Jesus and the teachings of Jesus, that's probably a great place to go next, because you've just released a study on the book of Mark, right? That's your latest study. And I think it'd be good for you to, when I was laying out these questions, I was like, I'm just going to let her go. So I'm going to just stop for a second and say, can you give us a little bit of the gleaning of what you have from that book of Mark? Just give us something today from that study. It'd be great.
I love, fallen in love with the book of Mark like never before. I love all the Gospels. But frankly, Mark was my least favorite of the four.
Interesting. Because
it's the shortest of the four. He does not tell as many stories, and I'm a woman and a windbag, and so I love the stories. I love, John's kind of warm and fuzzy gospel. I love Luke, has this wonderful bedside manner. Matthew has kind of that formal, it's almost like you're listening to somebody who's smart, kind of almost a C.S. Lewis approach. And Mark's is just the facts, ma'am. It's short. Yeah. It doesn't have the poetry. And so I thought that's kind of the ADD gospel. And at first, of course, it's scripture, so I love it, but it just wouldn't be the gospel I'd turn to first. And the more I started studying the background of Mark, we all know John Mark wrote it, but some people don't realize Peter's voice is really the narrative voice in the Gospel of Mark. So you've got these two men who totally blew it. I mean, they failed with flying colors. John Mark split up the ministry of Barnabas and Paul, so he was like the biblical Yoko Ono. He split up the Beatles. You've got Peter, who probably most infamous betrayal of Christ in biblical history, threw Jesus under the bus just prior to the crucifixion. And those two men come together to write this story, and it was the first story. When they canonize Scripture, they list Mark as the second gospel, but it's actually the first historical gospel. Those two men who were so desperate for redemption, for compassion, because of their own mistakes and their own very questionable bios, they come together to write this history of the earthly ministry of Jesus Christ. So you can imagine they just focus on compassion because they were so desperate for it. These aren't men who had it all together. These are men who knew what it was to disqualify themselves. And yet both of them experienced such mercy from Jesus. So I think as a woman who doesn't have it all together, as a woman who's made my share of mistakes, that's what I love the most about the Gospel of Mark is the mercy, the compassion of Christ is really the loudest note in that gospel.
Well, that's a good enough of a taste to make me want more. So hopefully folks will check out your study on the book of Mark for sure. You also wrote another book called Overextended and Loving Most of It.
Yeah.
And a lot of the parents, there'll be parents listening to this interview, and I think they can identify with that feeling of being overextended. So pull some encouragement for them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to tell you, don't listen to the yahoos who's either don't have kids or kids are grown and who tell you, you just need to pray for balance. The next person who tells you to pray for balance or to do an acrostic with balance in the study, you just need to kick them in the shins and run screaming for the woods. I don't think it's as much about balance as it is about wisely looking at what God has called us to do and to be. Right now, I'm a traveling single mom. I'm old, and my baby is 7. And so when I look at my life, I go, okay, primarily He's called me to share the living hope that lies within me, the gospel. Secondly, He's called me to love this kid and for her to know the love of Jesus through the way I parent her. And so let me take those two priorities, and everything else falls second to this. So I don't go to as many movies and girls' night out as I used to with my friends when I was single and didn't have a child. I'm not able to cook the once-a-month meals and have it all labeled neatly in Tupperware in my freezer. We do take out just as much as we do anything else. God bless Chick-fil-A. And so I think you have to look at the reality of your life, what God's called you to uniquely, and you go, okay, primarily I'm an ambassador of the New Covenant. Yeah. Secondarily, I'm to shepherd these kids. And so with the time and the parameters we have in our family, how can I do that with excellence? And then you run your lane as hard as you can. I think our culture tends to go, look at everybody else and see if you can't do your life as well as they're doing their lives. And I go, you know what, that's what's killing us. Compare leads to despair. So you look at what God has for you. You do it with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. And then the Lord will take care of the balls you drop. So to me, it's less about balance, much more about passion and purpose.
Compare leads to despair.
That's right.
May I steal that and
Absolutely,
act like it's
100%.
mine?
I'm sure I
Who did you
plagiarized
steal it from?
somebody. I'm not sure, but most of the good things, usually I steal from the old dead guys. You know, if
they
you
can't
steal
get
from
you.
old theologians,
They don't have any
forget.
copyright lawyers.
Or you
They're
can
good.
just very soberly say, I read this in one of our saints, who's long dead. And then everybody's like, oh, must have been
you're
like,
so smart.
yeah, that's
You're
right.
so smart.
C.S. Lewis, or you can always quote orthodoxy because G.K. Chesterton wrote like everything that's profound and nobody reads the book. So they won't know if you didn't quote from orthodoxy.
Doesn't matter.
That's right.
Okay, so I saw an interview online and with you because I Googled you. Have you Googled yourself?
I'm afraid to Google myself.
There you go. Yeah, and on there you called yourself an emotional agnostic at one point in your life and your journey.
Yep.
You chronicled that there was a season where in 1 month your father died.
Right.
You had a cancer scare and you lost a close friend.
Yeah.
And so you understand what it's like to go through a season of very real pain.
Right.
And God met you in that emotional agnostic state.
Yeah.
There are ministers listening to this and family parents that are listening to this that I think might be in a season of pain.
That's good,
I'd love
Jeremy.
for you to take some time to encourage them.
Yeah. Thank you for even bringing that up. I think sometimes we, avoid pain like we avoid kale in Christian culture. We're just like, oh.
I do avoid kale. That is true.
It's almost like we're afraid of what it'll mean to us. I have been walking with Jesus since I was a little girl, raised in church from the time I was in utero. Love Jesus, have had prodigal seasons, but I've never doubted the existence of our Creator, Redeemer. But there was this season, it was about 10 years ago, when I just lost everything that seemed to be paramount in my life. In one fell season, I lost my health, I lost my father, lost my best friend. And I mean, it rocked me to the core. It was like all the stools of my life, the legs of my stool just got kicked out from under me. And I couldn't pick myself up by the bootstraps. I couldn't sing a couple of worship tunes or recite a couple of scriptures and be okay. I mean, I was just really, really, really struggling. And I remember there was a season where I literally, when I woke up, had to say the name of Jesus out loud, or I didn't feel like I had the emotional strength to get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other. And it was during that season, and I realized during that season that I had been an emotional agnostic, that I believed theologically that Jesus was our creator redeemer. I'd been to seminary, so I'd memorized a few Greek and Hebrew phrases, but there is this stubborn corner of my heart that refused to believe that he was enough for me, that Jesus was enough. If I had nobody with skin on, Jesus would sustain me. And so that's being an agnostic. That's saying he's not enough. And so during that season of huge loss, I feel like God said to me with such mercy, Lisa, I'm going to take you to the basement of your life, this place you've been terrified of, that you've refused to go to, and I'm going to sit there with you in the dark, where it's quiet, where it's scary. I'm going to sit there with you until fear doesn't own you anymore. And it was about 6 months of really, I was as broken and as desperate as I've ever been in my whole adult life, and that is where I feel like I really got set free. There are some places where my heart was just held captive by fear, and I can preach grace, but I was afraid I wasn't really good enough. I knew God saved me. I didn't think he celebrated me, and it was in the darkness I feel like God really set me free.
Goodness, I wish people could have my vantage point right now. I see the sincerity in your eyes. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
You look like my little brother, so it's real easy to grin when I look
Either
at
your
you.
little brother or an Abercrombie model?
Either
one?
My little brother is an Abercrombie
There you
model,
go.
so
Okay.
there you go, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank you
He's
for
not
lightening
really.
that moment for
He's
me,
not
because
really.
I
He's
was
a
about to
good
start
man.
crying with you. Okay, so another book that you wrote will probably resonate with the parents that are listening. It's called A Perfect Mess.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Oh, la. Well, I'll tell you, right before I came up with the title for that book, a woman came running. It's actually a study on the Psalms, but which I love because the songs are not perfect. It's God's iPod. They were all written as songs.
God's iPod. Come on.
They were all songs.
I love it.
So it's like his it's his list of great music. But it also reads like a diary. The most often asked question in the Psalms is, "How long, O Lord?" So they're not all perky tunes. There's a lot of blues songs. And I was studying that, and a girl came running up to me in the church hallway, and she kind of came running up breathless between worship and Sunday school. We still had what they at the time called Sunday school. And she said, "Oh, I just have to tell you, I'm so glad that you're teaching Bible studies, because before you came to our church, all the women who led women's ministry were like so thin and so blonde and so perfect, and I just did not feel like I fit." And then you saw kind of the horror across her face of, "Oh, crud. I just told you you're chubby and brunette and don't have it all together." And I started laughing. I said, no, I know what you're saying. I said, I am so delighted if I can kind of be the template for you don't have to have it all together to be accepted by Jesus. And so that, to me, you see that story over and over and over again in the Holy Writ. These are not perfect people. They're people who messed up, and not to make light of sin, certainly not to make light of my own sin, but I always want to make much of God's mercy. And so to me, that's even the point of the title of that book. You don't have to be good enough for God. That's why he sent a Savior. After you meet Jesus, let's run toward holiness. But don't think that our God, turns his nose up at imperfect people. He doesn't. And those of you parents who came close to using a word that's not in the Bible over your children this week, run to Jesus. Just run to Jesus. Be reminded that he sees us on our worst day and still claims us.
You're teaching here on a bunch of things here at the D6 conference, but you're one of your lessons on how to deal with busyness, and I thought that would be something that, in thinking about parents, that would be something to talk about. What encouragement do you have for those of us who might be a bit too busy?
Well, I'm telling you, I'm speaking totally from the truth of God's word, not from my own life, or lightning will strike us right now, Jeremy, because I always say my default setting is stuck on go too often. But what he's been teaching me for years is that busyness is not a spiritual fruit. And I think we tend to accumulate kudos in usually church community, that if I work really, really hard, somehow my acts of service are adding up like frequent flyer miles, and God's going to be really happy, and I'm going to fly first class in his kingdom. And it's like, nope. There's seasons when Jesus himself went to the other side of the lake to be alone with his Father. And so I think to learn to have seasons where you go, for this season, I'm going to back up so that the static in my mind and heart die down, so I can actually hear the directions God gives me, the love songs he's singing over me. And so I do some real basic things. I moved way out in the country because I thought when I go home, I want it to be quiet.
In Franklin?
In Franklin, Tennessee. There's one day a week I don't do social media at all, because that there's nothing wrong with it. It's not good or bad. It can be used for good or evil, but it is a lot of static. So there's one day a week I fast from social media in all its forms. There are times that I just say no a lot more often so that I can be alone with God, so that I can be alone with my kids. So I'm busier, if you look at my calendar, than I've ever been in my whole life. But I also have respites, very intentional respites built into that, or I would be more of a hot mess than I already am. And then one last thing, and sorry, I can't help but get a little Bible in.
Yeah.
You know where it says God created rest? We all know that from Genesis. What I didn't know until, a couple of years ago, I was studying Genesis, and I had never seen that he created rest before the fall. That means rest was always part of God's perfect plan. It happened before the fall of mankind. So rest wasn't some accommodation he made for us because he knows we're weenie and we need to take naps. That's not it at all. When the world was perfect, when Eden was perfect prior to the fall, he created rest. And I think not only did he model it, he crashed out on a celestial couch, but it was part of his perfect plan for us. And he did it because he loves us, not because we need a mulligan.
Well, this has been fabulous. You're listening to Lisa Harper, and you can find her at lisaharper.net. You can get all of the books and resources we mentioned. I want to strongly encourage the study on the book of Mark. Sounds like that's fabulous. Just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I've totally enjoyed it. And I'm now a Lisa Harper fan. I'm in the club, president of the fan club. But thank you so much for being with us.
I'm going right out to Abercrombie, and I'm going to find your poster.
There are so many ministry conferences to choose from these days, so how do you know which one to attend? Well, there's only one family ministry conference designed to help your ministry team get on the same page to minister to families in your city. The D6 Conference invites over 50 of the top family ministry leaders to lead your ministry team through a learning and planning process that you'll never forget. The whole event is centered around making sure each of your age-graded ministers have the chance to learn and grow together. You won't believe what a difference it makes when your ministry team dreams together at the same event. So, this year, make plans to come to the D6 Conference. We'll even let your senior pastor come for free. Just use the code BOSSMAN during registration. D6 is the one conference for your entire team. To learn more, go to d6conference.com.
Wow, many of you were with us through all 50 of those episodes, and we want to say thank you for that. You have been with us, you've been listening, and you are a leader. And leader and disciple maker go hand in hand, and that's why you're listening, that's why you're a friend of D6, and that's why we do these shows. If you're new to our podcast, we say thank you. We've got many, many more coming down the road, and what we want you to do is share this with the families in your church, share this with other ministry leaders. Our podcast is growing. We are humbled. We are blessed by what God is doing, and we're excited to be celebrating 50. Can you believe it, Jeremy? We're here.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, and we've got huge plans to get us to 100. There's going to be some cool new stuff. We're going to always be growing, always be changing. I hope you'll just kind of just put this in. There is a way you can subscribe. If you haven't done it yet, you should. I'm going to go ahead and just say that. But listen, now one of the things I'm excited about today is 50 of you hopefully will be joining us at the D6 conference so we can talk in person about all the ideas you have for the podcast. If you have not heard, if this is somehow you fast forwarded to this point and missed the first part, we are giving away 50 tickets to the D6 conference. You can use the email address, I've already forgotten it. Episode 50 at d6family.com. Send an email to that, and we'll reply with a code, and you get a free ticket, $299 value to the D6 conference, because we're in a bigger room this year. We've got seats to give because we so highly value our listeners. We wanted to make a big deal out of this, so we took a block of 50 tickets, set it aside for you guys, and it's yours. All you got to do is send an email. I hope that you'll take advantage of that. Thank you for listening to all 50 episodes, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for listening. Ron, you got anything to say before we sign out?
No, just I agree. I want to echo thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. This is a fun journey. I look forward to 50 more.
50 more?
Yes, 50 more. And it's gone by so quick.
Yes.
And so does ministry. So let's not let opportunities slip by. Be part of everything that makes you a better leader.
Yeah, and it may seem like a kind of a buzzkill because we're so excited about episode 50, but we got episode 51.
We do. And we've got Scott Kadersha, a great interview on how to build an awesome marriage ministry in your church. And he's at Watermark, a church that I think does family ministry does marriage ministry probably better than anybody else out there, and they're great at mentoring other churches. Along with Sarah Cunningham, who talks about community and relationships, and she's actually doing some pretty significant research in that area.
Yes, and you have been with us for these first 50 episodes, and now it's time to move on to episode 51. I'm so excited. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week of ministry. We look forward to next Tuesday when we keep going on our journey towards 100.
Thanks for being with us for episode 50.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com. And if you're a minister, we invite you to join the D6 Leader Network by going to d6leadernetwork.com.